Okay, Jai. So far, it's only us.
That's fine. I'm sure Krishna's listening to it as well.
So you're volunteering for the Mangalacharan.
I am.
Very good. I'm happy to hear that, Jai.
Okay, let's start. Om Ajnanaतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मायं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथावितं तं सजीवम् अद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासाहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखावितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु
Deenabandhu Jagatpate
जगत्पते गोपीका
Gopeswamin
गोपिका
Gopinata
कान्ता राधा कान्ता
Gopakanta Namostate
तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी
Gaurange
राधे
Swami
वृन्दावनेश्वरी भानु सुते
State
देवी प्रणमामि
Pranamami Hari Priya
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च
Prabhasta
कृपा सिन्धु भैव
Kripasindhu
च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
नमः।
Namaha
श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य
Chaitanya
प्रभु
Prabhu
नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda
हरे
Hare
कृष्णा
Krishna
हरे
Hare
कृष्णा
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्णा
Krishna
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare
राम हरे राम राम
Rama
राम
Rama Hare
हरे
Hare Jai
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please
Jai
accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody who have joined the group and are about to join. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 2, Chapter 4, and the text for today is text 18.
Jai
I hand over to you, Prabhuji. Hare
Jai,
Krishna.
thank you very much. So the the process of creation. Kirata Honandra Pulinda Pulkasa Abira Sumba Yavana Kashadaya Yenye Cha Papaya Dapashraya Rashaya Sujanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. Translation. Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abira, Sumba, Yavana, members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Due to his being the supreme power, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Purport's quite long. I may stop and comment and do it in stages. Let's see how it goes. And what the Super Soul brings. Kirata, a province of old Bharatvarsh, mentioned in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. Certainly, the Kiratas are known as the Aboriginal tribes of India, and in modern days, the Santal Parganas in Bihar and Chota Nagpur might comprise the old province named Kirata. Huna. The area of East Germany and part of Russia is known as the province of the Hunas. Accordingly, sometimes a kind of hill tribe is known as the Hunas. If we remember from our history, Well, particularly the history that we do here in England and Ireland. It's the history is mostly comprised about the two wars of the 20th century. My grandfather fought in the First War on the Somme in Europe on behalf of the British Army. Although Ireland was colonized by Britain, people were persuaded to join and go and fight against the Germans because the Germans had dominated poor little Belgium and trampled all over Belgium. Of course, it was all lies. It was just to get people to join up. So they conscripted people from Ireland, although they were in turn they were supposedly fighting to defend Belgium. Well, the same British army were then subjugating Ireland at the same time and conscripting people from a subjugated country to go and fight on behalf of the subjugator. So I mean, it's insane. But that's the way it was. And in those days, the British Army soldiers, they used to call the Germans Huns. We got to go and kill the Hun, kill the Hun. So we had the situation where all the ladies in England were praying to their God to go and save their menfolk from the war to come home safe. The German ladies were doing the same thing, bring my menfolk home safe. And poor God, he was confused about what to do, and they're all Christian and everything. I mean, it's like, you can't make this stuff up. But anyway, this word Hun, although it's a Sanskrit word, like the German airline, Lufthansa, it's pure Sanskrit. German, I lived in Germany. I was running the German temple for a few years in Heidelberg. I worked on the German farm. Lord Nishingadev is there, and picked up a bit of German along the way. And there's so much Sanskrit in the German language, pure Sanskrit. It's pure Sanskrit. You can see how these, after Parashuram, killed the Kshatriyas 21 times, and then they scattered all over the world, particularly after Kurukshetra. There was so much of a scattering all over the world. I mean, the country I come from, Ireland, the name of the country in Irish, it's not, Ireland means nothing. It's the land of the Aryans. It's written on my passport, the land of the Aryans. In the Irish language, Gala na Heron, the land of the Aryans, pure, pure, pure Sanskrit. And so much of the Irish language is Sanskrit also. So we can see that the Vedic civilization was all over the world. And, we have the discovery in recent times of the monuments in Cambodia, where I'm hoping to go in the next year or so and visit. I mean, they're all over the world. Bali is, practically speaking, 100% Hindu country within a Muslim greater country. So we can see the language, the culture of India. It's spread all over the world. So this purport, Prabhupada is describing the verse, and the purport Prabhupada is describing the meanings of the different designations as described in the verse. Andhra, a province in southern India mentioned in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. It is still extant under the same name. So it's obviously Andhra Pradesh still goes by the same name. Pulinda, it is mentioned in Mahabharata Adi Parva 17438. The inhabitants of the province of the name Pulinda. This country was conquered by Bhimasena and Sahadev. The Greeks are known as Pulindas, and it is mentioned in the Vana Parva of the Mahabharata that the non-Vedic race of this part of the world would rule over the world. So we see the Greek culture, particularly at the time of Alexander, conquered the world, conquered the known world, certainly conquered India. And Prabhupada always tells the story of the Alexander. He went to visit a famous sadhu sage living up in the Himalayas, and he was in meditation. And he went, Alexander was recognizing his greatness, went to take his darshan, and went up there to the Himalayas to visit this sadhu. I forget his name. And Prabhupada always laughs when he tells this story. And here was Alexander, the great conqueror, very young. Alexander was in his late 20s when he conquered everywhere. I mean, he died very young. He died in his mid 30s. So he was very young, very bold Kshatriya. And Macedonia is where he came from originally, Greek Macedonia. So he went to see this sadhu. I said, anything I can do for you, I can build you a palace, I can build you a house of gold, I can build you this, I can build you that. Famous sadhu is known all over India. And the sadhu said to Alex, yes, 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 please, there's one thing you can do for me. Please, thank you very much. What is that? Anytime, anything, anywhere, whatever it is, just name it. If you could please move yourself and your horse out of the way, you're blocking the sunlight. Thank you very much. And that was it. That's what the great sadhu was asking the great Alexander the Great. Please move out of the way, you're blocking the sunlight. So, you know, our idea of luxury and honor, prestige, and all this kind of stuff, it's very different from somebody who's on the Brahma Bhuta platform, a different concept entirely of what is luxury, what is prestige, what is advancement of civilization. Here was, you know, great king of the world. I mean, he was a great king. There's no doubt about it. But Alexandria in Egypt is named after him. I mean, so many places are named after him. His statues everywhere. But still mundane. So Prabhupada goes on to say, this country was conquered by Bhimasena. The Greeks are known as Palindas. This part of the world will be ruled over by the non-Vedic race. So they conquered the world, the non-Vedic race. I mean, the British conquered India. The Muslims conquered India. So I was listening today to a lecture, a Karmi lecture, nothing to do with Krishna, how many different empires have come and gone and conquered India. So many. I think there was 7 or 8 listed. They're all gone. But the rock of Indian civilization, it stood, it held, in spite of all these conquerors, in spite of the weight of the British Empire to try to defeat Indian civilization. It failed. It failed. The Mohammedans, they failed also. So many, they just failed. They couldn't, you know, shift the faith of the Indian people who were strong faith in Krishna and Ram. It stood the test of time, and it's still standing the test of time. That's why Prabhupada said, now I've conquered the West, now let me go back and conquer India. That's why he set up that temple in Mumbai. Have to be politically correct. And he said, now India is going the way of the West. We have to stop this. And we have to defeat this demoniac civilization of the Yavanas and turn India back towards its original destiny. This is so important. And Prabhupada knew that Mumbai was the capital of the capitalist world of India. And people were flocking to Mumbai in their tens of thousands, see if they could make their fortune. So Prabhupada knew if I set something up, we would always think, and the devotees I interviewed at the time, they would always think, why Mumbai? What's so important about Mumbai? Vrindavan, Mayapur, Puri, yes, Dwarka, whatever, all the great places, the tirthas, the great places of pilgrimage, they're important. Why Mumbai? Because of this. Prabhupada said, why did I go to New York? Why did I not go to London? Everyone was encouraging me, oh, you go to London, you go to London. Former British Empire, head of the empires in London, go to London. Prabhupada said, no. I could see the shift of time had moved. The powerhouse was in New York, was in America. So I went to New York, right to the heart of Kali, to rip out his heart and tear him apart. That was Prabhupada. Just see how bold. Prabhupada took on Kali. I mean, Prabhupada is no joke. No joke. Prabhupada was a warrior. These Alexander and all these people are described as warrior. The real warrior in this case that we can understand is Srila Prabhupada. This Pulinda province was also one of the provinces of Bharat, and the inhabitants were classified amongst the Kshatriya kings. But later on, due to their giving up the Brahminical culture, you see, only that reason, due to their giving up the Brahminical culture, they are mentioned as Malechas. Just as those who are not followers of the Islamic culture are called kafir, and those who are not followers of the Christian culture are called heathens. So those who were following the Brahminical culture previously, and they gave it up, they were known as Malechas. Just like our country, we gave up the Brahminical. Before, when we were being educated in Ireland, in primary school, secondary school, and so on, we were taught so-called Irish mythology. But the Irish mythology was pure stories from Mahabharata and Ramayana. Absolutely, and we just, as children of Cuchulainn, in the main post office in the centre of Dublin. Ancient history, pre-written, pre-recorded history, but still, he was also a kshatriya and very, very wise on the level of Dhruva from so many of the stories that come out about him. And there are so many countries like that around the world where they have these mythological figures, so-called mythological figures, but are actually connected with Brahminical culture. But then when it was given up, they lost their power. And Cuchulainn, he lived to be 7,000 years old. So obviously it was in a different yuga to what, but of course, as ordinary little 8, 9, 10-year-old kids in school in Ireland, we didn't know anything about Vedic culture, but now we can see that there's a connection. It spans the globe. Abira, this name also appears in the Mahabharata, both in the Shaba Parva and Bhishma Parva. It is mentioned that this province was situated on the river Sarasvati in Sindh. The modern Sindh province formerly extended on the other side of the Arabian Sea, and all the inhabitants of that province were known as Abiras. They were under the domination of Maharaj Yudhisthira. And according to the statements of Markandeya, and the Malechas of this part of the world will also rule over Bharat. Later on, this proved to be true, as is the case of the Pulindas. On behalf of the Pulindas, Alexander the Great conquered India, and on behalf of the Abiras, Muhammad Ghori conquered India. These Abiras were also formerly Kshatriyas within the Brahminical culture. You see, that always comes back to that point, within the Brahminical culture. The Brahminical culture is so strong. But the problem is, over time, especially since the British entered, and the British caused so much damage, not only financially, not only monetarily, but they caused so much damage to the philosophy, the ancient philosophy, because they brainwashed the people into thinking that their methods of life were far superior to the Indians. And then, of course, the Indians copied the British, and they wanted to be a part of this great British Empire. So whenever the king would visit, all the pomp and ceremony, or even the governor who's representing the king, the pomp and ceremony, the wealth was vast, absolutely vast. The amount of wealth flowing from India and the rest of the world into the coffers of the elite in London was insane. And yet, people in London, the ordinary English people, were living in hovels, living in sewers, trying to eke out a living by going down into the sewers of London and see what they could find that they could sell and brush up and clean. But so where did the wealth of the world go? It certainly didn't help the ordinary person in England. Just like when there's a war declared, it's not the big politicians who go off to fight in the war. Like in ancient times, In ancient times, Duryodhana was leading the army. Karna was leading the army. Bhishma was leading the army. Arjuna was leading the army. They all led, no matter what side they were on. Those ancient kings, they went out and they fought. If there was a fight to be had, they led the fight. I think the last king in England to lead any kind of a war or an army was Richard III. They're called the Plantagenet kings, but they don't exist anymore since Richard III. So, I mean, they're all just cowards sitting in their bunkers, pushing buttons, making phone calls and sending people, mostly the youth, to their death. For what? Just like in the Second World War, Britain declared war on Germany, not the other way around. Britain declared war on Germany. And why did they declare war on Germany? To save Poland. And what did they do at the end of the war? They gave Poland to Russia. So it's all a show. It's all a scam. The whole thing is like a mirage in the desert. It's a complete illusion. And we get so absorbed in this, not in terms of war or world wars. I'm not talking about that, but even the mini illusions within our own world. We just become absorbed in them and we accept them as the reality. They're not. They're not at all. The only reality is in the scripture. The Shastra is our reality. Everything else is just a farce. Complete and total farce. Is just a phantasmagoria, as described. Prabhupada uses that word a lot. It's just a phantasmagoria to create the illusion that this is real. It's not. It's like being in a dream. When we're in a dream, we imagine that, being attacked by a tiger is real. It's not real. Why do we wake up in a sweat? In fear of the tiger? It's not there. So the rest of this material cosmos, it's real. It's there, but we're not a part of it. But it's so solid in its presentation that we imagine that this is the reality. It's not. The reality is far removed from this. The reality is Goloka Vrindavan. The reality is what we're reading on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna is telling us on every page what the reality is. But we choose to ignore it. We ignore it at our peril. And then we get so absorbed in this misidentification of I, me, and mine. This aham ameti. And it completely takes us away from the actual purpose of life. That's the sad reality. And there's no need for it. Absolutely no need for it whatsoever. Just pick up these books. It's like the Chinese I Ching. If you know anything about ancient Chinese philosophy, there's the I Ching, which determines that at any point in time, the super soul, according to the Chinese, is going to guide you. If you're open and receptive to the guidance of the super soul, Krishna is sitting in your heart. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yena mama payanti te. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. This is coming from Krishna. I give the understanding by which they can go away from me, by which you can forget me. This is all coming from Krishna. So the more we tune in to the inner soul, the inner self, the more we can begin to understand what is the reality. So if we tune into that and we become absorbed in that through our meditation, through our japa, then that will bring us to the lotus feet of Krishna. On behalf of the Palundas, Alexander the Great conquered India. On behalf of the Abiras, Muhammad Ghori conquered India. These Abiras are known formerly as Kshatriyas within Brahminical culture, but they gave up the connection. The Kshatriyas, who were afraid of Parashuram and had hidden themselves in the Caucasian hilly regions, later on became known as the Abiras, and the place they inhabited was known as Abiradesh. Sambas are Kankas, the inhabitants of the Kanka province of Old Bharat, mentioned in Mahabharata. Yavanas. Yavana was the name of one of the sons of Maharaj Yayati, who was given the part of the world known as Turkey to rule. Therefore, the Turks are Yavanas due to being descendants of Maharaj Yavana. The Yavanas were therefore Kshatriyas, and later on By giving up the Brahminical culture, they became Malecha Yavanas. Descriptions of the Yavanas are in Mahabharat, Adi Parva 85:34. Another prince called Turvasu was also known as Yavana, and his country was conquered by Sahadev, one of the Pandavas. The western Yavana joined with Duryodhan in the Battle of Kurukshetra under the pressure of Karna. It is also foretold that these Yavanas also would conquer India, and it proved to be true. Kasa. The inhabitants of the Kasa Desh are mentioned in the Mahabharat, Drona Parv. Those who have a stunted growth of hair on the upper lip are generally called Kasas. As such, the Kasas are the Mongolians, the Chinese, and others who are so designated. The above-mentioned historical names are different nations of the world. Even those who are constantly engaged in sinful acts are all corrigible to the standard of perfect human beings if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. So this is an interesting point. Incorrigible means somebody who cannot be saved. But corrigible means somebody who is within redemption, within the mood of redemption. They can be saved. They can be brought into the fold. So those normally, they're outside of the fold of Krishna consciousness, outside, completely divorced from Brahminical culture. But by taking to the process, that completely changes. Just by while waking up from the dream, from waking up from the nightmare, then your consciousness completely changes. So when we wake up from the nightmare, the consciousness is completely absorbed in something else. Then we're absorbed in the reality of what the reality is. I'm sitting here in my bed. I'm not being attacked by a tiger. But it's a question of consciousness. It's just turning the mind in one direction or another. It sounds naive, it sounds simplistic, but it is. It is that simple. So Prabhupada goes on to say, Lord Jesus Christ and Muhammad, two powerful devotees of the Lord, have done tremendous service on behalf of the Lord on the surface of the globe. And from the version of Srila Shukadeva Goswami, it appears that instead of running a godless civilization in the present context of the world situation, if the leadership of world affairs is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, that's why the Brahminical culture was there, and the Brahmins would advise the king. So the king wouldn't go off the rails. And if he did go off the rails, the Brahmins would curse him, as they did in the case of King Vena. He was completely and totally off the rails. He wouldn't listen to any advice from the Brahmins. So the Brahmins sat down, chanted mantras on their thread, and killed him. This is the power of the Brahmins. The Brahmins are not like some meditators, some sadhus sitting in the forest, cross-legged in a meditational pose. No, the Brahmins have power. These mantras, they have power. Mantra. Man is mind, tra is to free the mind from the cares and tribulations of this world. But not only that, that's just the basics. That's the rock bottom beginning stage. Then you go beyond that and you go to the lotus feet of Krishna through the process of sadhana bhakti. This is where we're at. And this is our privilege. We're privileged to be here. We're privileged to be in this position. It's not a case of lamentation. There's so much to lament about the world. That's a fact. But that lamentation is not our business. Our business is to engage, first of all, ourselves in the service of Krishna, and to engage whoever we meet to the extent that we can convince them to consider turning towards the lotus feet of Krishna. Whoever we meet, just give them a mantra, give them one name, one syllable. That's all. And then your job is done. If people take it up, fine. If they don't, fine. But you've done your bit in your own small way. You don't have to conquer the world. You don't have to become the Lord of all you survey. That's not the objective. First of all, we save ourselves, and then we try to save others. But in the process, we can do both simultaneously. That's the beauty of this philosophy. It works both ways. So Prabhupada goes on to say, running a godless civilization in the present context of the world situation, if the leadership of world affairs is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, for which a worldwide organization under the name and style of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already been started, then by the grace of the Almighty Lord, there can be a thorough change of heart in human beings all over the world, because the devotees of the Lord are able authorities to effect such a change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. So this is a nice point that Prabhupada is making here. He's not saying that, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness is the only way. Look at Prabhupada's language. Look at Prabhupada, what Prabhupada is saying here. For which a worldwide organization under the name and style of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So it's there. So we want to create a consciousness, not an institution. We want to create a consciousness. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not the International Society for Krishna Institution. No, consciousness. We want to change people's consciousness. When Prabhupada set up ISKCON in 1966, he said, well, we've set it up. We've embarked on a great future. We will conquer the world. And if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. He said that. If it doesn't work, we do something else. So everybody within our own area, within our own town or village or city or wherever we live, we set up our own little mini ISKCON so we can preach to people within our own circle of friends and family and convince them. And one soul we get. That's a big step in the right direction. We can effect such a change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. The politicians of the world may remain in their respective positions. Who cares about them? Let them stay. The dogs may bark, but the caravan passes. Let them stay in their position. We're not interested in their position. Because the pure devotees of the Lord are not interested in political leadership or diplomatic implications. It's not for us. It's not our business. Just like the Brahmins of yore, they weren't interested in power. They weren't interested in pratishtha and in prestige or honor or anything. They were just interested in affecting the consciousness of the leaders of the time, the kings of the day. So the king would not go off the rails. They didn't stop the king from going to war. They didn't stop the king from living a luxurious lifestyle. They didn't stop the king from eking out punishment to whatever rogues and rascals were in his kingdom. None of that stopped. None of it. But when the king went too far away from the Vedic culture, immediately the Brahmins would come in and say, okay, and immediately the king would always listen. We read the Mahabharata, read the Ramayana. Immediately when some from sage would visit the palace of the king, immediately the king would get up off his throne and bow down to that sage and take his advice and wash his feet. So this is the culture. And yet the Brahmin was detached. He wasn't interested in the luxuries of the palace life or the fans or the chamaras or anything like that. That wasn't his business. But he would advise the king, please, you do this, you do that, you do the other, everything will be fine. He didn't interfere in the running of the king. That was the king's job. He's not a kshatriya. So everybody has a role to play. Everybody has some Brahminical qualities, some kshatriya qualities, some more than others, some vaishyas, whatever the case may be. But everybody is engaged. And what is the ultimate cause or purpose of that engagement? To serve Krishna. We don't always have to be all automatons where we all do the same thing, think in the same way. That's not life. That's not Krishna consciousness, where we all just follow each other like sheep. No. Prabhupada said, I set up this society to create independently thoughtful men. This is what the society is for. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In every Back to Godhead, it is listed the purposes of ISKCON. Independently thoughtful men. This is what we all need to be. So then we can affect change not only in our lives, but in the lives of others. The devotees are interested only in seeing that the people in general are not misguided by political propaganda, and in seeing that the valuable life of a human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. So there you have it. That's its destiny. That is guaranteed. And it has been guaranteed since time immemorial. We spoke about Alexander the Great. He's come and gone. So many empires have come and gone. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the British Empire, the Mughal Empire, gone. They're just dots in the history book, hardly even getting a mention anymore. If the politicians, therefore, would be guided by the good counsel of the devotees, then certainly there will be a great change in the world situation by the purifying propaganda of the devotees. Out there on the streets, chanting, kirtan, harinam, distributing books, giving the philosophy, please take a book, take a flower, take a piece of prasadam, whatever the case may be, as long as that person somehow or other, by hook or by crook, gets in touch with the philosophy, gets in touch with the lotus feet of the Lord. This is what counts. Doesn't matter how it's affected, and what way, what method we use, or what language we use, or what culture we use, depending on our cultural background. Whatever we can do, whatever we can contribute in our own small way, do it. What does Krishna say? What does Krishna expect from us? What does he ask us to do for him? In the whole of Bhagavad Gita, he asks one thing: Patram pushpam palam toyam. That's all he asks. Even the poorest man anywhere on the planet can offer a glass of water or a flower to Krishna. But how is it done? With love. This is the thing. Krishna wants our love. We simply give our love and it will come back a millionfold towards us. There certainly will be a great change in the world situation by the purifying propaganda of the devotees, as shown by Lord Chaitanya. Shukadeva Goswami began his prayer by discussing the word Yat Kirtanam. So also, Lord Chaitanya recommended that simply by glorifying the Lord's holy name, a tremendous change of heart can take place by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nations created by politicians can at once be extinguished. And after the extinction of the fire of misunderstanding, other prophets will follow. So the main criteria is extinguish this misconception that I'm this body. Get rid of this aham mameti. Embrace aham brahmasmi. I am spirit soul. And then from there, that's the foundation, then everything else follows. But we don't even have that foundation. We're building castles on sand. And it doesn't matter what we do, no matter how big our skyscraper buildings, no matter how tall they are. You can go to the tallest building in Dubai or whatever it may be, and pay so much to go up in the lift, and it's all useless. Useless. And people are queuing up for these things. Useless things. Nothing wrong with enjoying or going sightseeing, but if that's the goal of life, then your castle is built on sand. If there's nothing else. And after the extinction of the fire of misunderstanding, other prophets will follow. The destination is to go back home, back to Godhead, as we have several times discussed in these pages. So that's the goal. That's the objective. There may be so many other things on the way, just like I've told you before. I think I mentioned this anecdote in my own life. then when they forgot to put my meal on the plane, and I was flying Olympic Airlines, and to compensate, they gave me a fruit bowl, which is better for me. I don't eat their food anyway. And then they brought me in to meet the captain and the co-pilot, and I sat down in the co-pilot seat, and the captain asked, "Do you want to fly the plane?" and so on and so forth. I said, "Yeah, why not?" He said, "Oh, what do I do?" He said, "Well, you're doing it." So you just sit there, the computer does everything. So the captain explained to me that, 90% of the time, the rudder brings the plane back on course. 90% of the time, it's off course. And it's brought back on course by the computer, which adjusts it constantly, bringing it back in line with the direction in which it should go. And I explained to the captain, yes, that's like our life. Our spiritual life is like that. 90% of the time we're off course, but then we remind ourselves, what is the ultimate destination? What is the ultimate goal? We may be doing so many things to get on with the mundane aspects of our life on a daily basis. That's okay. We shouldn't be beating ourselves up because of that. Life goes on. But then the foremost goal in our mind, the objective, is to get to Krishna. That's the thing. And then we go through life like that. And then before we know it, boom, we're dancing in Goloka Vrindavan. According to the cult of devotion, generally known as the Vaishnav cult, there is no bar against anyone's advancing in the matter of God realization. A Vaishnav is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnav, even the Kirata, etc., as above mentioned. In Bhagavad Gita 9:32, it is said by the Lord, there is no bar to becoming a devotee of the Lord, even for those who are low-born or women, Sudras, or Vaishyas. And by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return back home, back to Godhead. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord, who has thorough knowledge of the transcendental science of Krishna. That doesn't mean that you have to have thorough knowledge of the transcendental science of Krishna, but you take shelter of someone who does. Tadvidi pranipratena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanas jnaninas tatvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. He can impart you knowledge because he has seen the truth. So then you're on the right course. If you're going to fly in a plane, you don't need to be a pilot. If you're going to drive a car, you don't need to know the workings of the mechanics of how the engine works. You're just driving. So you're sitting in the plane, you're heading towards the right direction. You're sitting in your car, you're driving, you're going. How the plane works, how the engine works, it's irrelevant. So when you connect with a pure soul, pure devotee, the likes of Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, and we just go for it, then we're there already. We just have to stick with it. Prabhupada says the only thing the son has to do to inherit the wealth of his father is to stay alive. And he gave that example in relationship to his disciples. The only thing you have to do is stay alive. Stick with the process. Just go for it. Anyone from any part of the world who becomes well conversant in the science of Krishna becomes a pure devotee and a spiritual master for the general mass of the people, and may reclaim them by purification of heart. Has everybody heard that? Has everybody heard that? This is an important point. Anyone from any part of the world who becomes well conversant in the science of Krishna becomes a pure devotee and a spiritual master for the general mass of people, and may reclaim them by purification of heart. So this is our job. This is our job. This is our position. We have taken shelter with this philosophy because of the absolute divine mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And if we take it seriously, we put it into practice in our life, we also can take people and preach to them in such a way that they can also benefit from what little that we understand, even if it is only a little. It doesn't matter. Though a person be even the most sinful man, he can at once be purified by systematic contact with a pure Vaishnav. A Vaishnav, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and creed and promote him by regular principles to the status of a pure Vaishnav who is transcendental to Brahminical culture. What does that mean? Transcendental to Brahminical culture. Transcends it. He's above it. He's beyond it. This is not just mere Brahminical culture with rites and regulations and havans and yagyas and mantras and tantras and pantras. This is beyond this. This is the real deal we're into now. The system of caste or varnashram dharma is no longer regular even amongst the so-called followers of the system. And that's a fact. Nor is it now possible to re-establish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economic revolution. Without any reference to the particular custom of a country, one can be accepted to the Vaishnav cult spiritually, and there is no hindrance in the transcendental process. No hindrance, no obstacles, none. This is something we really, really have to take into heart. There is no hindrance, there is no obstacles. Just surrender to the Vani, surrender to the process, and automatically the result is there. So by the order of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita can be preached all over the world, reclaiming all persons willing to accept the transcendental cult. Such cultural propaganda by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive. So these are the qualifications. Be reasonable and be inquisitive. That's all. Without any particular bias for the custom of the country. Well, they don't do it like that in my country. We don't pray like that. We don't do that. We don't talk like that. We don't dress like that. Well, that's fine. But then adapt the principles of the philosophy, regardless of your dress or your language or your culture or whatever. It's irrelevant. You don't have to put on a dhoti or a sari in order to be a devotee. The dress is also external. It's not the point. It's not the way we talk of karmi clothes. There's no such thing as karmi clothes. It's consciousness. It's the heart. That's the real deal. Yes, if I go to the temple, I feel more comfortable in a dhoti. That's just the way I am. But other devotees who are far more advanced than me, they go to the temple in pants and jacket. That's fine. It's nothing to do with the dress. So we adopt our culture and we engage it in the service of the Lord. The Vaishnav never accepts another Vaishnav on the base of birthright, just as he never thinks of the deity of the Lord in a temple as an idol. And to remove all doubts in this connection, Srila Shukadeva Goswami has invoked the blessings of the Lord who is all-powerful. Prabhavishne Vaishnave Namaha. As the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotee in devotional activities of the Archana, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple, similarly, the body of a pure Vaishnav changes transcendently at once when he gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnav. You see these instructions? Every line of Prabhupada's purports, every line, every word has import, has meaning. We have to read it. We really, really have to read it and take it into consideration. Sukadeva Goswami has invoked the blessings of the Lord. As the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotee in devotional activities of the Archana, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple, similarly the body of a pure Vaishnav changes transcendently at once when he gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnav. The injunction of Vaishnav regulation in this connection runs as follows. Arche Vishno Shiladir, Gurushu Naramatir, Vaishnave Jati Buddhi, Sri Vishnu Namni Shabda Shamaniya Buddhi, etc. One should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, nor should one consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man, nor should one consider a pure Vaishnav to belong to a particular caste, etc. Padma Purana. The conclusion is that the Lord, being all-powerful, can, under any and every circumstance, accept anyone from any part of the world, either personally or through his bona fide manifestation as the spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya accepted many devotees from communities other than the Varnashramites, and he himself declared to teach us that he does not belong to any caste or social order of life, but that he is the eternal servant of the Lord, who maintains the damsels of Vrindavan, Lord Krishna. That is the way of self-realization. And that's just one purport from one shloka. One purport from one, just how much Prabhupada has put into these books. How much he has put into these. It's loaded with knowledge. Absolutely loaded. But we have to churn it. You know, if we want to get the butter and the ghee, we have to churn it. We have to work on it and churn it, and it'll come. It'll come. We're gonna go with it. Go with the flow. So I made a whole bunch of notes that I was going to talk on, but I didn't even look at them. Sometimes I'm a bit mad. Not sometimes, most of the time. Anyway, I think it's nearly time up now. If there are any questions or comments, please, I'd like to hear whatever anybody has to say. Thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this wonderful session today. I open it up to any questions. Are there any questions? Kindly unmute and ask your questions, or are there any comments?
Monavrat.
Monavrat. I think it's a very powerful purport today with lots of instructions.
Yes, yeah, a lot.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Can I accept my humble obeisances, O good Sir Prabhupada? Prabhuji, thank you so much for this nice class. It's not, you have so many notes, but you don't need notes. You are like a talking library, right? Whatever you have this knowledge in your head, you don't need to look even in the notes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Did you go to the Simhachalan temple in Germany? Was that where you were?
Yes.
So beautiful, right? So beautiful with the cows and very nice temple.
Radha Madan Mohan and Lord Nrsingadev.
Yes, and they do the Nrsinga yagna every Saturday.
Yes.
Big yagna every Saturday, and when they bathe the deities, you get the water. You're coming, everybody's running with a bottle just to pick that water. Yeah, so nice. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like you to discuss on the question that I sent you. You know, the question that can we change our karma? But many arguments are coming up that no, we cannot change. Some are very boldly into it. But then Prabhupada said that we can change the karma. Even in the books is there, we can change the karma, but some of them, they are adamant that no, we cannot change. So I have like 4 people on this platform of mine that I said, no, it had to happen. Prabhupada was a medium that, no, I said, my argument was, okay, so all the hippies that Prabhupada turns into happies, haven't they changed their karma? They said, no, that had to happen. Prabhupada was just a medium.
Yes.
So it's kind of, you know, we cannot change people. But I would like to talk on this, please. Next Saturday, if you can join.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in this regard, Prabhupada was interviewed on a TV talk show in San Francisco around that time of the San Francisco temple opening. And of course, it was big, the Summer of Love, 1967, and so many things. And hundreds of people were joining Prabhupada. They did that huge concert in the stadium to collect funds to open the temple in San Francisco. And the rock groups at the time who appeared, they were huge. They were on the level of the Beatles. They were world famous. Everybody knew them. So the next day or a few days after that concert, Prabhupada was invited to a TV studio to this interview. And the interviewer, straight guy, just asking out of curiosity, so what would you classify as a hippie? And because Prabhupada had been talking about hippies, and Prabhupada says, you know better than me. He didn't want to offend the hippies. So Prabhupada said, no, you know better than me, Prabhupada said. And then Prabhupada, as an aside comment, Prabhupada said, something extraordinary. That was so good. Prabhupada was just so good at deflecting. The hippies. Yeah, I've changed hippies into happies. He was asked that question in Mumbai. Sorry, he was asked that question in Mumbai when one Indian man, life member, he said, well, there's so many people. He was referring to so many of the big famous personalities who are pretty prominent, Rajneesh and Sai Baba and others who do miracles. And this man, he challenged Prabhupada. He said, so many of our Indian sadhus, they do so many miracles. We don't see you performing any miracles. And Prabhupada said, look around you. Hundreds of Western devotees are sitting here listening to my class. Before, there were drunkards and drug addicts and this and that and the other, and living on the street, practically speaking, unclean, unkempt, and rejecting their whole family background and rejecting their university degrees and everything. And now look, is this not a miracle that I brought them here? They're sitting here listening to Shukadeva Goswami. Is this not a miracle? So this is the real miracle, not some temporary miracle of curing people from their sore finger or curing people from a headache or whatever the case may be, or getting somebody to win the lottery or, whatever. It may be a miracle in some sense, but it's temporary. You win the lottery, you still die. But for this philosophy brings eternal life. That's the real deal. There's no death. We go beyond, way beyond death. Yeah, we can discuss on Saturday. Jai, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think we've exhausted our time for today. Can I request Parth Prabhu? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Are you able to close the session for today?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances, Prabhu.
Jai Prabhuji.
Thank you very
Hare
much,
Krishna.
Prabhuji, for your nice class. Yes,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I heard you had a wonderful success.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I heard you had a great ceremony in Eldoret, and you're going to build a wonderful temple.
Prabhuji, by blessing of all the senior devotees.
That's
yes, Prabhuji.
Fantastic to hear. I've been following, and I'm hoping that I can come and see you all very soon. It will be very nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Jai.
Like you told about the Prabhupada, how he's established across the world temple like this, and all the Hindu cultures, Sanatan Dharma, Sanatan culture is spread everywhere. Like we try to doing a small effort in case
very
Krishna's mercy.
Wonderful.
But it was very successful. Yeah, successful. But I hope this week or 1st of February we started our work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
By Krishna's mercy.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for your blessings. And thank you very much, everyone. If there is no question or no comment for the Vidura Prabhuji class, it is just nectar. When the Vidura Prabhuji class is there, instead of Bhagavatam, we can learn about the Prabhupada Lilamrut. Many, what is not written in Lilamrut, we can learn from you, we can hear from you, which is very nice, interesting.
Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, everybody, everyone, all the devotees here. I request everyone please unmute and chant Hare Krishna mantra for a glorification of His grace. Vidura Prabhuji, please join. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare Bol.
Hare
Vancha
Kripa Sindhubhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Grantaraj Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai.
Nanda Koti
Hare
Vaishnava
Bol.
ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Prabhuji.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Hare Krishna.
Good night,
Hare
everybody. Good
Krishna,
night.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Hare Bol.
Thank you.
Hare Bol.